Zest is in, where resilience begins, not fixing the cracks.
Hello everyone and welcome to Zest is Zen with me, Shel Marie, the podcast that'll take you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. Today it's an absolute pleasure to welcome my beautiful guest, Safa Khan. She is a human systems architect, exploring how we evolve within systems we live and lead in, bridging inner awareness with external impact. Ooh. First, she came onto my radar through a reflection she shared on LinkedIn, which sparked a really meaningful exchange, not only with me, but with actually, I think probably getting close to hundreds now. Last time I looked, it was definitely a high amount. Around visibility, leadership, and how we support one another in digital spaces. And I knew that straight away I wanted to connect with her and explore her thinking further in this conversation. Through her work, she invites us into a deeper understanding of conscious leadership, clarity, and intentional living. But what does it really take to shift not just how we think, but how we exist within the systems around us? I'm sure we will explore more. And if you feel called, please subscribe, because you're absolutely nothing but helps amplify my beautiful guest's voice today and reach many more hearts and minds. And if you have done so, thank you. And may this episode bring you the clarity, expansion, and grounded awareness that you may be seeking. Welcome.
Hello, it's great to be here, Shal, and you've done a very beautiful introduction already. So I don't feel I have the need to introduce myself, but yeah, I'm so glad to be here and to connect with you. And I really just have a passion. Sometimes it's not always about business. I just like connecting with people who are around the same wavelength, and not just people like that, but I even do like people who even contradict me sometimes, because they look at your work and what you're doing with a different lens. And when
Yes.
you look at them sometimes, and when you listen, there's some wisdom behind there, and you kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at yourself from another perspective, and you're like, okay, this is something that I need to develop on. So because when you're always surrounded by people who think in the same way as you do,
Mm.
there's no room for self-development.
Oh my gosh, straight away in straight away with an incredible insight, and it's absolutely I definitely don't want to do an ageist thing, but I know that you shared your age with me, and for you to be this insightful already, wow. I already know there's so much greatness just from the way you're showing up, the way you're thinking, the way you're seeing life. I know absolutely when I was in my early 20s, I didn't even know what LinkedIn was. So for me to have this conversation with you now and to see all that you're creating, and even to have this conversation around particularly mindset, and I know that many people in their 20s definitely are not seeing what we could call confrontation, challenge as something to grow from. And I think it's really, like, I want to just honor you for that. I think, wow, already to recognize that, because that is the gem. They're the keys, to transformation and growth. So I love
Thank you
it.
so much. It's honestly, I think a lot of wisdom that I've gotten is from my parents, because, I would say, like, Alhamdulillah, we're in a good, comfortable place. But I've seen my parents working from here to here for, not their goal wasn't for, just to get successful, but they were like, oh, we want our kids to live a comfortable life. But they taught us to not take everything for granted.
Beautiful.
So my mom, she was like, you need to be your biggest supporter, but at the same time you need to be your biggest hater as well, because
Mm.
that's when you keep finding things where you think, okay, this is what I need to work on next. How would because um there's no such thing as perfection. I do
Absolutely.
not believe in it. Everyone tries to achieve it, but we think, when we look at someone, oh, this is perfect. But maybe they too are inspired by someone else.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
maybe they have their goal to be like that person. So there's always someone who's going to be above you, who's going to be doing better than you.
Mm,
And yeah, it's just the whole frame that you just keep developing yourself until
absolutely.
reach it.
Again, wise words. And I think what you
Mm,
just shared really, really also shows the mindset of many of we put that judgment that they're better than us or they're striving higher.
mm,
So what I've personally found in my life is actually everything pretty much is created by me. So if
mm,
I'm allowing that post or that picture or that conversation or something to affect me, and it's not saying that we should also be numb and pretend that we live in
mm.
rainbows and fairies and everything, but equally I am the one that's in control of how I respond, how I show up,
Exactly.
how I present
Exactly.
myself, and that's what I can hear that you're sharing, which is beautiful.
Mm,
um I just feel really intrigued now, and if something doesn't come to your mind, don't like feel free to share it or not
mm,
share it, whatever. But could you tell me maybe something that maybe someone said or you read or was sent to you that really sparked transformation in your life? And really, because there's receiving the wisdom from your parents, there's them telling you
mm,
something, and
mm.
then it's happening to you and applying it, and that's two very different things, I think. So yeah, I just love an example. Like, you don't have to name people, you can keep it
That's
very
a
neutral.
lot of, there was a time in my life, I would say, maybe not, it's been pretty recent, where I was, feeling down. I had, just I was going through my whole, the whole divorce proceedings and all that. And at that moment, everything just felt out of place.
Yeah.
But then, I got, because usually, like, me and my family, we do like a lot of charity. I go to communities that do charity as well. So there was this community, and they were looking for volunteers. And I was like, you know what, let's do something different. It's time to give back, and let's go.
Beautiful.
And when there was this particular line that he said, and it was that, we're being ungrateful about, a lot of things. And when we're sitting here today, and there are people who are just, grateful to be even having a little bit of good food. Like,
Mm,
we're crying about so many things, and then there's this person who's probably having his first meat of the week,
yeah.
you know and that sort of just changed my whole, it kind of just rewired my brain in a way.
Mm,
And I was like, yeah, because we have so many things to be grateful about. Like, I wake up, my hands, my reflexes are working, my eyes are working, my mouth is working, my brain is working.
yes,
So
yes.
it's just, I think sometimes, we need to look at the really, really small things. And when you start counting your blessings, especially, with all that's happening in the world,
Yeah.
it's really sad. I mean, and it's heartbreaking. But in a way, I think it also shows people that, you have the kind of blessings that people don't have
Yeah,
yet in their
yeah, absolutely. And then equally back to what we just shared, there'll be
life.
others that have even more, you know.
Mm,
But
mm,
again, I think what I really loved particularly about your particular post that I commented on was
mm,
it wasn't right or wrong or yes or no. It
mm,
inspired thinking, and that's what I really
mm,
love. So,
mm,
again, like the responses you probably got would be a
mm.
reflection of your mindset. Because
That's true.
if you would have taken it as you wrote this to get a certain response, and this is not
Mm,
personal to you, this is personal to anyone.
ex-
If we
mm,
put something out there and we have already expected a certain result, then
Mm.
naturally we have set ourselves up not to fail, but to receive pushback.
Mm.
Whereas I felt, and again, like you're happy to access this, but I felt that you wrote it in such a beautiful way that allowed reflection from all perspectives. Um,
That is true.
yeah,
Mm.
and that's what I really loved, and that's why I shared it, because I just felt like, so just for the viewers listening, basically what she shared was how often the most I would, you can share it if you want, but I would like summarize it, but then feel free to
Yeah,
expand on
please.
it. But I would take it from the perspective that I read it
Mm.
of, for example, I think I'll use my own platform as an example. Sometimes when you might look at my platform, you might see, okay, the 12,000 whatever followers, and then you might see 5 likes, or 2 comments, or sometimes 20, sometimes more, very variable, very different. Whereas what I felt that you were communicating is that there's certain people that get to a certain level where they're constantly getting the hundreds, they're getting the exposure, they're getting put to the top of the LinkedIn. And I felt that you were saying, like, sometimes that doesn't mean that that's the most powerful post and that's the one that
Mm.
should receive all the exposure. But equally, I wrote, but then also we don't know what's happening behind the scenes with that, because I also
Mm.
know, and it's nothing to anyone's strategy, but I know that there's other people that get the hundreds, but they are actively basically telling people to comment and like, whereas I know that that's not integrity to me. It's not a judgment to anyone that does that, but for me that's not a valuable use of my time. And if I feel that when I look at what I receive from what I put up, I receive depth, I receive meaningful connection. So I'm not saying it's quantity over quality. I believe you can have all. But
Mm.
equally, I think sometimes we're so focused on the numbers that sometimes when we look in depth, and I felt like this is what you expressed,
Mm.
it's very like, oh, great post. It's very surface level, but hundreds.
Mm.
Whereas someone
Ex-
else, you could have that depth, like the messages I receive and the comments I receive. If I was to compromise hundreds of very surface level to the depth
Mm.
that I receive, and I know I can receive both, and I will, um,
Mm.
I would not compromise. And that's why I really felt inspired by your post. So feel free to elaborate on that, but I just felt like it was a really important, particularly talking about
Mm.
systems, because I think we should definitely
Yes,
talk about systems as well.
that's true. That's true. And what you said was exactly right. And when when sometimes, because I do take a really long time, whether it be on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and I look at the kind of content that people are, making, because in the UAE and also like in a lot of other spaces, because I've been in those rooms where, there are people of higher level in a way, in a certain way, and they come in those rooms, they're talking about empowerment, they're talking about, oh, uplifting people, but when you kind of look at their work from the behind, and it's like, what's there, what it's, because
There's the substance.
empowerment, exactly. And I feel like we don't just need like more empowerment initiatives, there's a silos that we need to break, and then we need to build up an ethos that sustains it. So
Mm-mm.
right now, when we look at certain things, the empowerment, it's just, it's existing in pockets. A lot of people are,
Yeah.
promoting empowerment through programs, or just like people also have, I've seen a lot of podcasts as well, but there's no depth in those, the words that they're saying. It's also really structurally disconnected, and it
Yeah.
just feels like this whole sort of PR strategy sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel
Another
like
thing
this,
for another piece of exposure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then I feel like this sort of starts creating this gap between intention and then access.
absolutely.
And for me, as someone, who's a youth advocate as well, so I feel like for them, it affects them in a particular way because they're inspired. We get inspired by people quite, easily in a way, I would say, especially because, we have the Gen Z, we're really opinionated, I would say, and we like to stick to whatever values that we have. So
Yeah.
I feel like when we're inspired, but then the thing is we're not really integrated into those real pathways. There's
Mm-mm-mm.
no spaces for particular young people. Like I've been to events, I've been to spaces, and I've had people even questioning me that who do I think that I am to be speaking
Mm.
on this panel, or why am I even there, or what
Yeah.
sort of value am I bringing into the table. And I would just be quiet. I was like, I shouldn't have to introduce
No,
myself.
no,
I have my
absolutely.
titles. I
Yeah.
have my titles, but this isn't why I'm here. I'm not here because I'm looking for, just spewing some fancy words and then, getting people to come into my business. These I like to separate them because for me, yes, you can have, empowerment with doing your business. That is there 100%. But the reason I like to keep them separate is because especially when you're with a lot of people who have different sort of intentions.
Yeah.
So when I feel like oh, I was invited to speak on one panel and they're like, you're really great, we really like the kind of engagement you have with your posts, and they're like, oh, but to speak on our panel you need to pay like 20K. And
Yeah. It's just
what
out of integrity, isn't it? Like, I hear
exactly.
you. I hear you.
So for this, I feel like, to get that shift, we kind of need better systems that are more interconnected, I would say. So
Mm.
empowerment should be something that flows across institutions, across systems, and something that links people together into, leadership, into opportunities, into, decision-making spaces. Like a lot of people, like, I was having this conversation, and like I said, I like having people who have different opinions. So I was sitting with her, and she was a business coach as well. So we were talking about, what problems people usually find within the youth, within Gen Z, and she was like, oh, I feel they don't take themselves as seriously. But we cannot generalize,
No, that's an absolute, like, yeah, you can't
I feel like,
generalize a whole
mm,
generation.
exactly, because for me, it feels like, the empowerment, it wasn't just about, enabling voices. It's also about designing entry points for other people as well.
And that's what I
Empowerment was,
thought of. And it's not saying
mm,
that at your generation you would not have that money, but if you want to hear
mm,
the perspective from all different generations, all different walks of
mm,
life, all different people, then
mm,
you put a price on it, you're only going to get the people that are, again, able to use their voice because they have the financial abundance
mm,
behind them. And
mm,
equally, some people have that abundance, but it's not in integrity and alignment with their values. And I'm very
mm,
somebody who very much is in alignment with actually what I believe I put out, I receive
mm.
equally. And something
That's
you really powerfully touch on, and I would love your perspective on this, is
mm,
what I've noticed. And again, there's no definitely that it happens, but I've noticed that when people do say receive more of that abundance, which we all want for what we're putting out into the world, would you say sometimes that the posting isn't, it doesn't feel as in integrity and as personal because it isn't actually the person doing it? Because that's another
I
layer to it. There's your voice,
yeah.
there's you writing it, and there's someone
Mm,
trying to tap into the way that you speak, the way you present yourself. And I can feel the
mm,
difference. I know the difference between when it's AI, when it's the actual person, or when it's
mm,
someone's and it's not again saying that it's right or it's wrong. It naturally happens
mm,
as you evolve. Your time gets used in
mm.
different ways, but I just think that could also be another element to the
That's true.
substance.
That's true, honestly. And for me, it starts with, I would think maybe it's the intention of, why people are using another option, whether it be maybe you having an assistant that's writing for you or using an AI tool. So I feel like maybe it's if you're using it in a way, like sometimes what happens is that you have this idea but you can't really comprehend it into the kind of words
Oh,
you want to put it.
absolutely.
So I feel like during those moments I do kind of like the use of either AI, or maybe I'd rather say someone who's sitting with you and typing it out for you,
But
because
but
it's
that's different. You with them and
exactly.
someone just like, because you
Well,
see
yeah,
these
yeah, I
posts
understand
and
what you're
posts
saying.
and posts and posts,
Oh,
and it's like, and again, it's just sometimes quantity over quality. I just
that's
think,
true.
I don't know,
Mm,
because
yeah, that's
again,
true.
I think every tool, there's
Mm,
nothing wrong with AI. Every tool, when used
mm,
intentionally,
exactly.
yeah, and I think that's
Mm,
just, there's a very big difference between just allowing,
mm,
having a template and saying this is kind of what I want you to post this week, and then leaving someone else with a completely
mm,
different mindset,
true.
a different way of writing,
Mm,
and essentially
mm,
representing you. And I
mm,
just think in your business, especially when you're
mm,
expressing yourself, like
mm,
now,
mm,
if I didn't show up today, and I've invited you or something, you'd be a little bit like, um
that's true.
where's the host? Oh no, so I'm just stepping in for Shelley today. You'd be
Mm,
like, that's not what I
exactly.
agreed to. And I think that's what I feel with some people's posts sometimes
That's true.
is you you just don't feel that, you can tell the difference. I think you can just tell the difference.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is also true. So, like I said, it's sometimes with intention. Sometimes, like you said, people are just, either just trying to get the likes on their post. But, there's also something that I've noticed: the people who are liking their post, if you get, a little bit more into that depth. So it's also, you don't see any alignment, you know what I mean?
No, I
So it's
know.
sometimes either, you know, either people who are also just trying to get attention, or are
Yeah.
just trying to get into their connections, I would say, and also just for people to get noticed. So I've seen, if you're doing something that's just for attention, you get the same kind of people back at you you
And
know
this was what I was about to say. Thank you, my darling, once again, highlighting a powerful point. What
Mm,
I believe you put out, you receive. So, okay,
mm,
you, put in that time, that effort, you will grow, you will get the likes. But as we
mm,
just talked about, I'm not saying, but you will get probably just someone in with that same energy, that same, and it still
mm,
will be felt. Whereas, um, I think even though it seems to be the longer route, not necessarily that is what
mm,
has to happen, but I think sometimes you think about the hare and the tortoise story,
mm,
it's like, okay, like for example, I think of an iceberg, and I know that when I get, and sometimes I'm sure you're the same, you wake up and you've got like 20 messages, you've got this, you've got that, which isn't a reflection of what people see on the direct
mm,
profile.
mm,
And everyone seems to want to be able to improving the likes and the this and the that.
mm,
But what they really don't understand, this is just my perspective, is they don't see what is below the surface. They don't
mm,
see the time and the energy and the effort and the relationships I have built with global connections, the
mm.
trust, the integrity, the so much depth.
It's something that's meaningful, and
Yeah.
it's something that's creating impact, I would say.
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
And
Okay, like exactly.
it's the
Like,
long,
okay,
I can't
this
think of the
person has,
word. You know what I'm trying to say.
no, 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 I understand. So, like I said, it's like, okay, person A is okay, getting lots of likes, lots of engagements of on their posts. Okay, what's next? What are you
Exactly.
doing to create impact that's, sustainable? What's the next step? Okay,
Yeah.
we're talking about empowerment. What sort of actions are you going to take to the point that you've just
Mm,
expressed? How do you think,
mm.
it's going to happen? So, yeah.
And what has that person received as as a result of engaging with what you have shared? And I think that's
Mm,
very different as well. Yeah, not everything's going to resonate
mm,
or be meaningful for others, and what you so beautifully express you're not going to have, we don't want just agreement, fantastic, amazing. We want
mm,
substance, we want different reflections, we want different points of views, because that's where the transformation lies.
exactly.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I think that goes back to
Mm,
conscious leadership, doesn't it?
mm,
There, there's,
definitely.
there's, there's the follower and the leader, and
Mm,
there's the person who sees each and every person they engage with in a different light, and understands the value they bring and the integrity, and doesn't see themselves above or below, but just in
mm,
alignment. Um,
mm,
and so, yeah, so it's not, again, anyone listening, we're
mm,
absolutely not saying right or wrong, this or that. We are all different, all unique, and that's the
mm.
beauty of this world and of the way we present ourselves. But
True.
equally, I think just often go back to the feeling you feel based on what you've shared or what
Mm,
you've expressed or what you're putting out to the world. And has it got substance? Has it created meaning? Has it
mm,
created impact? And if that's what you're putting out there, calling myself particularly an empowerment coach, well,
mm,
I need to think about that carefully, because am I
mm,
empowering? Am I creating impact? Um,
mm,
and I just, so with that in mind, because I don't want to use up too much more of your time, but also I'd love to, because this really stood out to me as well, the human systems architect. I would just love
mm,
your insight into your mind about that as well, about because I think that's, again, really powerful way to present yourself.
mm. For me, that title actually started with, the youth initiatives. There's a lot of, disparity going on, I would say. Like, the UAE, the leadership is beautiful. They have, they've created so many,
Yeah,
so many opportunities, um, for everyone basically.
yeah,
Recently, they did, this amazing initiatives for women, because we have like on our national IDs basically, which we call the Emirates IDs, which is for expats. So women who were homemakers
yeah.
were first just called housewives,
Yes,
but
I
now
saw
they
this.
changed it to calling them generation shapers.
But they aren't, like, you even, I don't mean to interrupt you, darling, but
Mm,
you express that from the offset of sharing who
mm,
inspired you and your mindset. Who inspired you
exactly.
and your mindset? Your parents, your
My
probably
parents.
your mum.
Exactly.
And
But I feel like, having it acknowledged, because I feel
absolutely.
like, it's this is gonna sound controversial, but like, I feel like, feminism has sort of um change meaning as we go,
Oh
because
yeah.
I've been in places where I feel like, if a person is, a housewife, or they're, spending time at home, okay, maybe they do have those, they're living in a comfortable way where their husbands are supporting them. Sometimes they get shamed for that as well. You're not working, you get shamed for that. You're working, you get shamed for that as well. So I feel like, there was a lot of insecurity sometimes, when I was especially speaking to some housewives because they felt like, if they're in a space with working women, they don't get acknowledged that way. So I
Mm,
felt like even though it was just a small change in title, it made a really big difference to those women.
beautiful.
It felt like they could come out and they could be more, they can wear that title with pride,
Yeah.
and it's been acknowledged by not just a normal person, but, the UAE leadership
Yes,
itself
yes.
you know
Yeah.
so I feel like that was something great. And going back to the human systems architect as well, so for me, I wanted to basically, what the reason we use the word architect is to build. So to me, I wanted to be able to build spaces that can actually connect on a conscious level,
Yeah.
not just for people who are just searching for jobs or all that,
Yeah.
on in a meaningful way between executives and the youth.
Yeah.
And because we have a lot of potential, the youth has a lot of
Of
potential.
course, of course.
And I feel like not just looking at younger people, but looking at the potential within each other, connecting in a meaningful way. When we talk about organizations and stuff, there's leadership, there's they get in a lot of frameworks, they get in a lot of programs for their employees and stuff, but there's still, like, leadership still falls apart sometimes.
Mm-mm-mm.
That's because they're not really connecting to each other in on a conscious
Absolutely.
level. And I feel like, sometimes we need to connect to each other beyond leaving our titles behind, but just as humans.
Absolutely. And age. And
And
age.
exactly, that's true. So
Um,
I feel like, we need to leave all these categories behind, sit and connect together. And I feel like, and sometimes when we do that, then we have people who are actually sharing new ideas.
yes,
And
yes. I
and
couldn't agree more.
it's just, and magic happens, honestly.
Mm.
And I feel like sometimes, when because I, have good mentors, I have good friends. But for me, what I felt was, missing in those systems, was someone looking at my potential and giving me the nudge in the right way.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes we have, those ideas, and, everyone talks about, oh, people having good ideas, but not executing them.
Mm-mm.
But nobody tells people, everyone has this doubt. Everyone talks about it. Oh, people are not executing their things properly. Okay, it means you have an idea of how
Absolutely.
people are supposed to execute them.
Yeah,
So why not
yeah.
sit down and tell people, give them that little nudge?
I
But
agree.
then,
Yeah. Because, and we've talked about this a lot on some of my
mm,
global panel discussions, that
mm,
competition, collaboration, and
mhm,
if you are, we'll just talk woman to woman right now, but you are a
exactly.
woman that has walked that way. And, I've heard this even in my life of, well, I went through it. So, you learn a lot from it.
Mm,
The energy of that is very different to, do you know, I think this will be really good for your growth. That's very
yes,
different. There's a difference
yes.
between that kind of bitterness and that resentment of, I did it and I got to where I would, like a fighter, to
Mm,
so you should go through it as well, to, okay, really using your wisdom and being like, okay, would it actually really help this person right now to give her the contact that she might need? Or to say, maybe go here, not necessarily give everything to that person, give them,
exactly.
but also have that discernment as well of, okay, maybe
Mm,
she just needs that little time to actually sit with this and let everything come up. Like, there's the
mm,
wisdom in it, and there's the seeing the growth and wanting the growth and the expansion and the best for that person,
mm.
and there's the, like, suppressing and almost sometimes not wanting someone to succeed because they
And
had
I've been a
suffered.
victim of
That's
that.
very
I've
different.
been I've been a victim of that as well, because I've had, and the thing is, I would say those people didn't really, I was not a competitor. I wasn't even trying to compete with them. We
Yeah.
had two different spaces, them working on another one and me working on something else entirely. But it became hard for them to see, oh, how someone who's so young was getting the kind of
And that's
engagement
a
that she got.
reflection of them, not you, but still it's
Yeah.
so personal, and we really need to stop
Mm,
this. We are all
exactly.
unique, and as we know with abundance,
Mm,
there is enough for everybody. And I think the moment we
exactly.
stop thinking it's my podcast, it's my idea, it's my post, why did they copy that? No,
Exactly.
how many times do you read these books from, famous people? Like even I'm reading something right now, metaphysics from like
Mm,
years and years ago. Someone is
mm,
speaking the same language, using the same words, inspired by that person. Do you think that person said, well, if I knew that everyone was going to copy my ideas, I wouldn't have bothered writing the book? No, the whole point of the book is to inspire people. That
that's true.
person's voice and wisdom lives on and on and on because they are inspiring generations. And I think we really need to change this.
Exactly.
Um,
And I feel like especially, again, it's controversial, but it's something that does need to be addressed. When women compete with each other. And it's more often than not that this happens because I understand like there's this point of view where women coming from, that they face so much, they face a lot of criticism, they've, you know, face a lot. But wouldn't it have been better that then I feel like for some of these people that feeling comes in that, oh, I went through so much to get to this post, why is it that this new person should come in that easily?
yeah.
But isn't it better that something like this doesn't happen to anyone in the future?
Generational. And again, this is a topic I was speaking about with someone recently. Why would we not want that for our child, most loving mothers, but we do it to other women or
Mm,
younger women? Just think if that was your daughter right now, would you want to leave this world and continue this pattern of, well, tough, I went through it, you go through it, I went through it, you go through it? Or would you want to
mm,
leave this world in a more empowered
mm,
and you know ease and flow place? And I think that's what it
mm,
is. Like for me, as much as what you achieve in a lifetime, if you have a son or a daughter, you naturally,
mm.
most parents should want the best for their child afterwards,
Exactly.
more for their child. And if
Mm,
you don't,
exactly.
we have to question what's inside of us that's making us think, well, no, whatever, they will
Mm,
as well. They'll
mm.
suffer. And I
And
think
then
you wouldn't
when
want your child to suffer.
That's true. That's true. And when I look at this from the perspective of a human systems architect,
Mm-hmm.
so it makes me feel like this isn't just a people problem, it's more of a problem within the system as well.
Absolutely.
So, like I said before, when organizations they invest in empowerment, like I said, where they do programs, talks, but there's no structure that's actually sustaining it, again, because the competition, it does come internally from within the person, but sometimes it's also the system that sort of
Absolutely.
created them you
Absolutely.
know so and a lot of times, we look at leaders, they've developed individually, but when where they're operating, like you said, because it's all about alignment. When the environment that they're working in is so misaligned, then your own thoughts, your own coherence just starts,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it just starts turning into fragments. So I feel there's
Agreed.
also that, yeah. So the thing is, when everyone they want to bring these initiatives, but they're always, just existing in, silos. They don't really have this function that's actually interconnecting people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like it's also not just a people problem, but a system problem as
Absolutely.
well that we're
Absolutely.
working with it. And we need to find a way to, change these systems, but change doesn't come in that easily. So it's sort of like, for me, when I think of it as a human systems architect, so which is why I feel like it's better to connect people first to each
Yeah.
other, and then we work on changing this system together. So
Beautiful. Well, yeah,
You
because
know,
if you're not reading off the same manual, you're not going to have the same,
exactly. But
exposure.
we feel like, okay, we don't have access to this, we don't have access to that. We're thinking about ourselves. But I feel like maybe we could reach to a midpoint when we listen to that. Maybe we give some of our perspective, we
Yeah,
listen to some of theirs,
absolutely.
and then we reach to a midpoint that sort of just helps us to create a new system where, opinions of both sides are, um, let's say, respected, actually, and
Absolutely.
just acceptance.
Absolutely.
Both of them are accepted, and then we make something that's new, I think, and that's when the magic truly happens.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I feel like there's so much more we could unpack and unfold, but equally, if there's anything you feel like the listeners would really benefit from hearing from you today, or anything that you're implementing that you would love them to get involved with, feel free to share now.
Honestly, if I just like to connect with people, I'm always open to new perspectives, and just to, even if someone has like problems with going on with their lives, I just like to just say I'm a listener. To be honest, I'm more than like someone who likes to talk, but I do like, because for me that's when my thinking starts going on a deeper level as well.
Yeah,
So when people give their own, perspectives, so I'm just, open to anyone who wants to just have a conversation that has meaning, obviously. I don't like getting in with people who just, I like to make all my connections with in life basically meaningful. I don't prefer, because I like hanging out, I like eating with people. I, just like going out for fun as well. That's that. I don't think that, if we're serious all the time,
no,
we,
everything in balance.
things. So
Um,
everything needs to be in balance. But I feel like when it comes to friendships as well, especially who the people you surround yourself with is really important,
Absolutely.
because
And
then
not just the people, the
Mhm.
content you're
The
consuming.
content. Exactly. That is very true as well.
Yes,
So I think because that sort of gets into your thinking, even if you don't want it to, it still does in an unconscious way.
absolutely. Even
So
even of an image, as you know, an image
mhm,
can just immediately take you to a memory, take you to a thought, a feeling. You can
true.
receive so much,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
yeah, and that's the power of
And
advertising, isn't it? I guess.
that's true. And what I think I would just want people to take away, one lesson that I just, gratitude. Everything starts with gratitude. When you feel like, when you're practicing gratitude, things start
Yeah,
aligning. That's it. On
absolutely.
its own. You don't really need to sit and, start working on something. When you start seeing things, on a deeper level, or small things that, you're grateful about, it's just that the energy you start,
Absolutely.
emanating from yourself, you
Yeah,
start attracting positive things in life. And yeah, it's just, although it's not related to my human systems architect thing as well, but I feel like this is something that everyone just needs to understand, because
absolutely.
yesterday I was talking with a friend who was just feeling really down, with the whole people not being able to get jobs, and, having, studied a lot with good degrees. They've done good internships. But, and then I offered him a different perspective, and he was like, okay, I feel like my energy shifting now.
Beautiful.
And I'm gonna,
Beautiful.
and he was like, you know what, I'm gonna try something else. I'm like, yeah, maybe that might work out for you. So
Absolutely.
sometimes, I feel like we're chasing something with desperation, but sometimes it's not meant for you. Like a lot of,
Absolutely.
a lot of,
Redirection.
yeah, a lot of people, they keep going like, no, you keep pushing for your goals, you keep pushing, but the universe, and for me, I feel like God sends you
Yes.
signs
Yes.
that it's not meant for you. So it's better to change
Absolutely.
direction.
I hear you. And two things that I had with that, and you're already one step ahead of me, by the way, because I always
Mm,
say at the end, if there's something you believe that the listeners could like would really benefit from hearing, that doesn't need to be related to what you've just spoke about today.
mm,
So you've already ticked that one off. So you're
mm,
already ahead of me with
mm,
that one. But the two things that I really heard just before we conclude this
mm,
beautiful, beautiful episode, thank you so much, is there's okay, like what you say, like, oh
mm,
yeah, gratitude, and there's the
mm,
heart mind
mm,
coherence,
mm,
and when you really sit in that and you really feel it,
mm.
that's when I believe it vibrates out, and it's something that is felt, not seen.
That's
And
true.
I also felt like even what you shared with your friend, sometimes yeah, sometimes it doesn't always come in a way that we expect it to come, but
Mm,
often
that's true.
through people's words, their actions,
Mm.
they're usually the little nudges.
Mm.
So thank you so much for sharing that, and really appreciate you creating this episode with me. And yeah, I'm excited for you and all that you're creating and all that you continue to be more than do. So
Mm.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I really enjoyed this episode as well. I would say, because, like you said, because I come a lot, across a lot of podcasts. But like I said, there's no depth. You don't sometimes even understand what they're actually talking about and what's going on. So yeah, this was something that was really refreshing for me as
Thank
well.
you.
So
That really means
thank
a
you
lot
so
to me. Thank you so much.
and you're welcome. And thank you for having me.
You are very welcome, my darling.
That's the magic that Zest is in.